Those following a vegan diet may want to be extra careful to ensure they are consuming enough iron, zinc, vitamin D, calcium, and omega-3 fatty acids. Vegans are also at a high risk of developing a vitamin B12 deficiency that, if untreated, can potentially cause neurological effects that are irreversible.
Hello, vegan ladies. John Sackers here. If you've seen some of my videos and you've heard me talk about how much I love vegan vaginas, then chances are you have probably fantasized about me licking your vagina.
Be kind to animals, I don't fuck carnists. Be kind to animals, I only fuck vegans.
Please watch Earthlings. Please educate yourself.
It's not food, it's violence!
Yep, it definitely has neurological effects. Now, I'm going to take you on a little trip back in time. This is a complex issue and requires context, so strap in, kids. Before I do that, however, I want to point out that I personally know many good, loving, caring vegans who have genuine compassion about their vegan diet without righteousness, ego, or forcefully pushing their views onto you in order to take morally virtuous high ground. To those people, I say, fair fucking play. I'm with you. Crack on. But it'd be a bit boring to make a video directed at good, sensible people. So this is for these people. The militants who storm restaurants and call you a murderer. Yeah, them arseholes. So, is everybody sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Our ancient hominin ancestors subsisted exclusively on fruits, plants and seeds. Therefore, they expanded a lot more energy on digestion as these foods are difficult to break down. Millions of years ago, the human gut was longer and slower, requiring more effort to extract the limited calories in forage foods. With so much energy being spent on digestion, the human brain remained relatively small, similar to other primates today. Meat is a high quality food. Energy dense with lots of calories and protein in comparison to the foods that we'd previously foraged for. All of nature's intelligent species are omnivorous or carnivorous, and that's been the case throughout the history of life. When we started adding meat to our diet, there was less of a need for a lengthy digestive tract equipped for processing lots of plant matter. Slowly, over hundreds of thousands of years, humans ourselves shrunk, freeing up energy to be spent on the brain, which grew explosively in size before shrinking again sometime in around 2010, apparently. But that's just a casual observation on my part. I haven't checked with the scientists. When humans tamed fire and began cooking meat, it became even easier to digest quickly and efficiently, and therefore consume those calories to feed our brains. The earliest clear evidence of humans cooking food dates back roughly 800,000 years, though it may have been sooner, and cooking meat allows you to get the very most bang for your buck. The reason that I'm telling you all of this is because it's important to consider the evolutionary causes for our position of dominance today. Clearly, it's important to conserve energy for intellectual competence and prosperity, and the most efficient way we can do that is to use cooked meat as our energy source. That's worth knowing. There are, of course, reasonable substitutes. All will take significantly more energy to digest, so your net calories being used for brain function are still down. But here's a list anyway, because I'm helpful like that. Notice anything? How many of them grow here in the UK? Which brings me to my next bone of contention, that being vegan is good for the environment. This thesis has come about because the methane released, particularly by cattle, is a contributor to the greenhouse effect which is driving climate change. And I mean, that is true. But scientists agree that the biggest contributor to warming is CO2 emissions. And there's a good reason for this. Because although the methane actually warms the planet more pound for pound, it leaves the atmosphere far quicker, so its effects are far shorter term. Methane contributes to 14% of worldwide emissions, with CO2 making up the leftover majority. This doesn't mean that methane isn't a part of the issue as a whole, and it isn't something that we should tackle, but its role and long-term consequences are being outweighed by the CO2 that we pump into the atmosphere. So the scientific consensus is that the CO2 is the worst of the bad guys, not cow farts. I personally don't blame cows for farting. It's both relieving and humorous, and it increases personal space if you want it. Not to mention, it prevents spontaneous combustion. Don't ban farting, you arseholes. Do you know which is the sixth biggest contributor to emission rates of CO2? Well, it's a little bit of a trick question, really, because it's not a country, it's the shipping industry. Yes, one industry is accountable for more than over 180 fucking countries worth of global emissions. 3% of all CO2 emissions, in fact. What do most ships contain? Avocados. No, I'm just joking. It isn't just avocados, but it is food. So when I glance down at my plate and I see a chicken raised here in the UK, a dead one, obviously, with some potatoes and veg both thrown in as well, you expect me to think that I'm responsible for a larger carbon footprint than someone who has had every type of nut, bean and fruit shipped here from every corner of the fucking planet? Get fucked. But animals are sentient beings. You wouldn't eat a dog, so why eat a cow? Well, no, I wouldn't eat a dog. But I don't eat sushi or mushrooms. And I don't eat bats. I mean, if push comes to shove and I had to eat dog or starve, then, you know, get the bread rolls and the ketchup out. But in today's reality, nah, dog's off the menu. Does that make me a hypocrite? Well, no, not really. It's called a hierarchy of values. As a human being, I have a relationship with dogs and cats, and to an extent spiders, because although they look very different than us, they kill mosquitoes, and mosquitoes carry disease. So, you know, they live rent-free. I mean, they take up no space, leave me alone, help me keep the gaff clean. I have to destroy the webs, obviously, but I like to think, you know, that keeps them on however many toes a spider has. Anyway, I have a relationship with dogs, obviously. As we co-evolve with dogs, having taken in young abandoned wolves, exchanging their heightened senses as an alarm system for a cut of high-quality meat from human hunts. As a result, humans and dogs have co-evolved together over hundreds of thousands of years, which is why we find each other absolutely adorable, and seem to sometimes have more compassion for the other species than our own. I was never a cat lover, but they've grown on me with age. I like their indifference and their independence. If you gave me a cat with a sense of humour and the capability to speak English, I'd probably have it as a mate. We domesticated cats as pest control and came to be quite infatuated with them due to their beauty and the aforementioned qualities, to the point of worship in some cultures. Point I'm making is we have a hierarchy of values, and so we have different relationships with different animals the same way we have different relationships with different people. Did the cow ask to be killed? No, but not many living entities fucking do they? It's also worth mentioning that hundreds of thousands of insects and small rodents die due to harvesting processes, and if all lives are equal, a vegan meal is responsible for more individual deaths than a steak and chips. It's amazing they find the space for all these crop fields, actually. Although, when you research it, you realise that it's a major contributor to deforestation. But apparently destroying the homes of young wild animals so that they slowly die of starvation or exposure is more compassionate than raising a healthy cow and putting a bolt through its head. So, let's eat nothing but meat all day, every day. No, I'm not saying that at all. I personally tend to keep my red meat consumption down to about 1 meal per week, and usually have eggs, chicken or fish included in 1 meal each day as part of a daily diet. All of which locally sourced in the UK, and yes, I do enjoy some more exotic food such as fruits and nuts and coffee, but alas, I'm not harassing people on their diets when they're trying to eat or shop, or calling anyone murderers. I'm simply defending my position and the many people who I know feel the way that I do. It's also worth noting, as I've said about general left-wing ideas, shaming people into believing what you do does not work. If you speak to people like human beings and try to understand their perspective, you'll get a far better response than you will by interrupting a person's meal to push your ideologies and use shock and shaming tactics. For fuck's sake, is this not obvious yet? It's also worth noting that if every single one of us became a vegan today, there'd be huge consequences. With plenty of fields and no large apex predators, the cattle population would explode here in the UK. There's not enough crops available to feed the world, and they're very much dependent on weather cycles to grow. And with changing climates and more unpredictability in the weather, suddenly our projections for food production can't be trusted or relied upon. You'll often hear vegans say things like that they don't want everyone to be vegan, but then I wonder why you've chosen to preach to me about it, in which case. Point is, they're right. It's best we don't all become vegan because it'd be bad for the planet, and more importantly, they wouldn't stand out as morally virtuous anymore, would they? I'm not a nutritionist or a doctor. I can't tell you what to eat, but what I will say is that if you really care about the planet and your own health, buy locally produced foods, enjoy a balanced diet, and try not to waste anything. That's just common sense. Thanks for watching, guys. Give me a like and a sub if you enjoyed the video, and more importantly, stay safe and don't eat fucking bats.